Chapter 1: The Coldest Secret. Welcome to Synapse Daily. Imagine a world of pure white. The Arctic wind screams. It cuts like a frozen knife. The year is 1959. The Cold War is at its peak. The world lives in constant fear. Tensions are rising every single day. America needs a secret edge. They look toward the far north. They see the vast Greenland ice. It is a perfect hiding spot. No satellites can see through ice. No spies can survive this cold. The army starts a new project. They call it Camp Century. That was just the public name. The real name was Project Iceworm. It sounds like a dark myth. It was actually a nuclear reality. Deep tunnels were carved in silence. The sun never reached those halls. Men lived inside a moving glacier. They walked through corridors of blue. The ice groaned under the weight. It was a city of shadows. A city made for the end. Nuclear missiles waited in the dark. The project was a massive gamble. It was a dream of steel. It was a nightmare of ice. Step into the tunnel with me. Feel the freezing air on skin. Listen to the glacier's heavy heartbeat. The secret was buried very deep. But the ice remembers everything. Let us explore the frozen tomb. Chapter 2: The Cover Story. Every great lie needs a mask. The army built a perfect mask. They told a tale of science. Camp Century was a research lab. That is what the papers said. They invited journalists to the ice. They showed off modern weather tools. Soldiers smiled for the black cameras. They looked like brave Arctic explorers. The Pentagon released glossy brochures. They spoke of testing new materials. They spoke of understanding the climate. The world truly believed the story. Greenland was a territory of Denmark. The Americans needed their official permission. But they kept the missiles secret. Denmark did not know the truth. Sovereignty was pushed aside for war. Military strategy was the only goal. Science was just a clever distraction. Behind the labs sat the generals. They brought massive, heavy industrial drills. They brought endless crates of supplies. They brought nuclear experts in secret. The researchers were actually combat engineers. They were not studying the snow. They were conquering the frozen ground. They were digging for tactical power. The public clapped for the science. The soldiers dug for the war. It was a masterpiece of deception. A secret city under the sky. Chapter 3: Engineering the Impossible. How do you build in hell? The Arctic is a frozen hell. Traditional buildings would just sink here. The snow would crush normal roofs. Engineers needed a brand new plan. They used massive Swiss snowplows. These machines were giants of iron. They carved deep, long, straight trenches. The walls were 30 feet high. Then, they used large steel arches. They placed them over the trenches. They sprayed snow over the metal. The snow froze into hard glass. It became a roof of stone. Now, they had a safe tunnel. Inside, a hidden city began breathing. They built labs for the scientists. They built a fully equipped hospital. There was even a small cinema. A barber shop was also there. Plywood bunkers served as heated barracks. It looked like a lunar base. The air was recycled and thin. The temperature was always very low. Ice walls glowed with dim light. Cables ran like veins through ice. The engineering was truly a miracle. Nothing like this existed before then. Man was winning against the Arctic. Or so the engineers thought then. The glacier was watching them build. Chapter 4: The Nuclear Heart. This city needed a lot of power. Diesel fuel was hard to transport. The weather often stopped the ships. The army had a bold solution. They built a portable nuclear plant. It was called the PM-2A reactor. This was a world-first attempt. The reactor arrived in many pieces. They hauled it across the ice. Sledges carried the heavy uranium core. They assembled it deep inside ice. It was a marvel of physics. It provided heat for the soldiers. It provided light for the tunnels. The reactor beat like a heart. It hummed through the frozen walls. It turned ice into hot water. But it brought a new danger. Radiation lived in the white dark. Nuclear waste was stored in pits. They thought the ice would hold. They thought the radiation would vanish. It was a house of atoms. A sun inside a frozen world. The soldiers felt safe and warm. The reactor kept the dark away. But the heart was very heavy. It was a toxic, glowing secret. The ice became a silent guardian. A nuclear city in the north. Chapter 5, 600 Missiles. Iceworm was not a peaceful home. It was a launchpad for death. The mission was called Project Iceworm. They wanted to hide 600 missiles. These were special Iceman nuclear rockets. They were designed for the cold. The plan was absolutely massive in scale. They wanted 4,000 kilometers of tunnels. That is a truly insane distance. The missiles would sit on rails. Trains would move them every day. The Soviets would never find them. You cannot hit a moving target, especially one under miles of ice. The rockets could reach Moscow easily. They could strike in minutes, not hours. It was a shell game with nukes. The strategy was brilliant and cruel. One single signal could trigger launch. The ice would crack wide open. Fire would rise from the snow. The world would end in white. The generals loved the secret plan. They saw it as ultimate victory. A hidden army under the glacier, ready to strike from the dark. The missiles were the real residents. The men were just their keepers. Chapter 6, Life in the Freezer. Imagine living there for many months. You never see the yellow sun. The sky is a ceiling of ice. The hum of the reactor is constant. It vibrates in your very bones. Soldiers drank melted ancient glacier water. It tasted like thousand-year-old dust. They ate in a warm mess hall. They tried to ignore the cold. They played cards to stay sane. Laughter felt thin in the tunnels. But the silence was always heavy. Outside, it was minus 60 degrees. The wind could freeze skin instantly. Inside, the walls were slowly closing. The ice was alive and moving. It groaned loudly in the night. It sounded like a dying beast. It felt like being slowly swallowed. Moisture from breath turned to frost. It covered the plywood cabin walls. Psychologists watched the men very closely. Isolation can break a human mind. Some men stared at the walls. Others talked to the blue ice. The city under ice was lonely. It was a high-tech frozen cage. You forgot the smell of grass. You forgot the sound of rain. There was only the white hum. There was only the blue dark. Chapter 7, The Unstoppable Flow. Glaciers are not static, dead rocks. They are slow and heavy rivers. The army made a fatal mistake. They underestimated the ice flow. The glacier moved faster than expected. It shifted several meters every year. Gravity pulled the ice toward sea. The tunnels began to warp slowly. Steel arches started to buckle hard. Huge bolts snapped like dry twigs. The ceiling started to sink down. Floor levels became uneven and tilted. Maintenance became a desperate daily battle. Soldiers shaved the walls with chainsaws. They cut away tons of ice. They fought a war with physics. But the glacier never stopped moving. It was a slow-motion crushing machine. Nature did not want the base. The ice wanted to be whole. It filled the empty spaces again. The engineers looked at the data. The tunnels would collapse by 1967. No machine could stop the pressure. The ice was reclaiming its territory. Man was a guest who overstayed. The glacier was the final judge. The project was a losing fight. Chapter 8: The Dream Collapses. By 1962, the cracks were everywhere. The nuclear reactor was getting squeezed. Critical pipes began to shift dangerously. Leaks were becoming a major risk. The vision of missiles faded away. It was simply too expensive now. It was becoming far too dangerous. The army finally realized the truth. You cannot build forever in ice. The city under ice was failing. The Pentagon looked at the costs. They looked at the shifting walls. The strategic value was dropping fast. New satellite technology changed the game. Hidden tunnels were no longer invisible. The project was scaled back sharply. The 600 missiles never arrived there. The base became a ghost town. Only a skeleton crew remained behind. The dream was turning into debris. The grand plan was a failure. The ice won the first round. The generals retreated in quiet shame. The city was left to die. Chapter 9: Abandoning the Tomb. In 1964, they pulled the plug. The nuclear reactor was shut down. They shipped the core back home. The soldiers packed their heavy gear. They left the plywood buildings inside. They left the heavy diesel engines. Rail tracks were left in place. Thousands of tons of waste remained. They left sewage and toxic oil. They thought the snow would hide. They thought it would stay frozen. Forever is a very long time. They sealed the metal hatches tight. The tunnels collapsed shortly after that. Camp Century vanished from the surface. The white desert looked empty again. It was a secret buried deep. Only the bitter cold remained there. No markers were left behind then. No signs warned of the toxins. The army walked away in silence. They hoped the world would forget. They hoped the ice would hold. But the ice is a traveler. The tomb was not truly sealed. Chapter 10: The Debris Field Expanded. What did they leave behind there? Thousands of tons of toxic waste. There are massive pools of diesel. There are PCBs and chemical fluids. There is radioactive meltwater in pits. It is all encased in ice. For decades, it stayed very still. The secret was safe and cold. The army thought it was gone. But the Arctic never truly forgets. Denmark eventually found out the truth. Diplomatic tensions flared very high then. The scientific base was a big lie. The Arctic was a hidden landfill. A toxic gift for our future. Barrels of oil sit in blue. Mercury and lead sleep in tunnels. It is a ticking chemical bomb. The Pentagon did not clean up. They let the snow cover it. Nature became a silent, dirty storage. The debris field is incredibly vast. It spans kilometers under the surface. The tomb is full of poison. Chapter 11: The Thaw Begins, Expanded. Global temperatures are rising very fast. The Greenland ice sheet is melting. It is melting at record speeds. The permafrost is no longer permanent. Scientists are watching the site now. Satellites track the moving ice mass. The debris is moving toward sea. It travels a few inches daily. Estimates say it will surface soon. Maybe in 80 years or less. The Project Iceworm ghost is waking. The toxic waste will reach ocean. It will enter the local food. Fish and seals will be poisoned. We cannot stop the great melt. We cannot dig it out easily. The cost would be billions of dollars. The past is coming back now. The ice is a melting clock. The alarm will sound very loud. Chapter 12: Lessons of the Cold. Iceworm proves our massive human hubris. We thought we conquered Mother Nature. We tried to weaponize the entire planet. We ignored the long-term environmental cost. The Cold War left many scars. Some scars are on the land. Some are hidden under the ice. It shows the danger of secrecy. What else is buried out there? The Arctic holds many dark secrets. This is just the biggest one. It is a warning in white. We played with fire and ice. Now the ice is turning liquid. The water carries our old sins. Trust was broken between many nations. Power came before the living earth. We must learn from these tunnels. Darkness cannot stay buried forever. The light always finds a way. Chapter 13, The Final Word. Thank you for joining us today. Project Iceworm remains a chilling tale. It is a story of ice. It is a story of fire. The base is gone. The waste remains. We must watch the melting horizon. History has a way of returning. Stay curious about the hidden world. Stay tuned to Synapse Daily. We explore the shadows of history. Until next time, stay warm.